So are all trade shows alike, no matter where they are in the world? The answer is no, as we come to find out, especially if you are an exhibitor and you're thinking of going to the UK or to Europe for the very first time and exhibiting, you've got some things that need to be different. And I am so excited to have on an expert who's going to help us to figure out if you're going to the UK for the first time, what are some things you need to be aware of? We're also going to be talking about ROI and a lot of great things. Really excited to have on Andy Hickinbotham from Tecna, who is going to be educating us a little bit today on all the things that you need so you could be prepared and just rock out your next show. Andy, welcome to Trade Show University. Great to have you here.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it. It'd be great to go into some detail with you.
Absolutely. Just give people a quick intro about who you are.
Yeah. Okay. Originally, I'm a designer by original trade. Fell into the exhibition industry like so many people in the UK and became a salesperson. But I've dabbled in project management and then other sectors such as retail and museum. But generally speaking, I've always done much the same thing, which is exhibition live events. Various different companies that have taken me, to many overseas installations. So yeah, I still use my design leanings in my day-to-day sales work, let's call it. Yeah, it's still a very interesting sector. It certainly is for us over on this side of the pond, and I think it's ripe for expansion, and it still is. So I think it's always going to keep my attention. And I'm a very visual person. I like to work strongly with marketing and with various trade associations that we'll maybe mention. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Design led, commercially focused.
Love it. Oh, that's great. That's great. And it's really at the core of it. It's about design. It is very visual as we're walking through these exhibit halls, even if we're walking down that long aisle of 10 by 10 booths, excuse me, exhibits, then what are we drawn to? What are we drawn to? So I'm glad you bring that to the table. But let's start off by talking about some differences between the world or the US and the UK. What are some common misconceptions that people have about when they're coming to the UK for the first time?
Well, I don't know whether they're misconceptions or whether they're almost like underconceptions, if that's a word.
Oh, okay.
I don't think people quite realise that there are things with UK and to a lesser extent EMEA exhibiting in Europe, which are for US exhibitors, of which I've been privileged to work with many over the years. They are easier. The process is easier. I think the mechanics of lead generation and data collection can be easier, dependent on the excellence of the organizer, of course, and the venue. I think there is a school of thought that, British design, as it once was sort of thought of, is still very good. And even though there's still a learning curve there, it brings in some really nice differences, I think, for my stateside clients who really understand what we're trying to do on this side of the pond with custom modular approach rather than just, straight reuse. There's some really interesting little intricacies in that and different sorts of materials. And it is a thought process. And like you say, everything stems around design and design thinking, but it also stems around psychology, right? People go to a show, they don't usually go there to be impressed by exhibition stands. Sometimes they're going to be impressed with an experience. Oh, and sometimes that's an exhibition stand. Quite nice when you think about it in those terms, treating people as we always should as individuals, with an advocacy in mind is always far better than just treating them as a number on an ABC sheet. So that's something that maybe an organizer can't do in the same way as we do as ideators, as people who come up with those concepts. So the difference is really, I think, are that in the States, obviously, you have a lot of regulatory control over certain things, not just messaging and, pharmaceutical industry, for example, and defense, but also, the way that drayage and carriage and inward shipping and all those sort of things are structured. You guys, I guess your exhibitors over there are used to it. Well, it doesn't really, there's a release, I think, when exhibitors come to the UK. It's like, you guys can do it all. And we do. And I'm speaking here as a person, as Andy, within the industry, but also representing an industry. And most contractors and suppliers, design and build suppliers in the UK are able to offer that to a greater or lesser degree. Some just forget to try and forget to communicate that and just assume that everything's going to be a decision on cost, not responsibility, if you like, because we term ourselves as responsible creators of brand experiences. But what are we responsible for? It's not just budget, it's time, it's brand, it's ROI. Those are all the things that are the brand assets, or the assets really for the exhibitor, not just money. So it's great when we can deliver things for less money than maybe an exhibitor is used to in the US, but even better when the experience is better and the ROI is stronger. So I think that's where we approach it from. Those differences become huge levers to get more out of events and keep people exhibiting, because that's what we want to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You probably have a lot of US exhibitors right now going, I think I'm going to do all my shows in the UK from now on.
Well,
Just to we're making it simple, but it sounds like really do your research. If you're an exhibitor, you're trying to think of it, do your research, maybe reach out to someone like Andy who's the boots on the ground there and can help you navigate and figure out, well, this is how we do things differently. And you don't have to jump through all these hoops like you do in the States. You could do things a little bit differently. Does that sound about right?
yeah, it does. And again, I'm the first person to tell you that, if somebody comes to me and says, we need such and such, and it's something that me or our company or Tecna doesn't do, I'll be very honest and point them towards somebody I know is going to do a fantastic job in the UK. I only want to see exhibitors re-exhibiting, and they'll do that because of that ROI, not just because they had a lovely time and got drunk on the first night of the show. I used to work for GES, and obviously in the States, GES and Freeman rule the roost in terms of the large scale exhibitions. And I realized that there are shows in the US that are so vast and so big that it's very difficult to almost judge how you're going to penetrate that market and that sort of thing. We don't tend to have shows of that monumental sort of scale of some of the Vegas shows in the UK. What we do have is quite an advanced and quite a mature segmentation of market over here, so that certain shows will strip out and do maybe regional shows, or they mirror a show in Europe. Travel sector is a perfect example of that. So I think it's really quite interesting when we talk to US exhibitors who maybe we can, and something I do a lot of is actually suggesting shows and saying, you've probably not even heard of this event.
Mm.
It's relatively new, but think about that, because that's really interesting. Some of those concierge services that we certainly offer, and I do, are more to do with the things that are nothing to do with loading anything on a truck. They're things to do with carbon footprinting and the insights that we take from the show, and brand ambassadors and all that. So it properly can be crafted as a total package, very measurable, very responsible, but also, we're responsible for the output as well as the input. So I think that's really the thing to expect from good UK design and build contractors, those that are accredited anyway. So I think there's some really, really good opportunity for, as you rightly just said there, for US exhibitors and the widest overseas exhibitors to benefit from that local knowledge, let's call it.
Wow, that is so important to understand that local knowledge and not just take it for granted. Want to stay on this topic for one more second, then I want to switch to something else you brought up, which is sustainability. But I want to come back for one more second, and that is the difference. So, okay, we've got the show is here. We're on the show floor, and the show is open. Attendees are streaming through. Are there tips for engaging with people in the UK, knowing some different things, business versus the US or elsewhere in the world that you would say this is I see some mistakes, some companies kind of not doing it the right way. What would be some tips or some mistakes that you see from the attendee engagement standpoint?
Yeah, that's a really good question, good point. Because there are differences, and there are tips, but when you illustrate those differences, and they probably migrate around the way that lead gen and data capture works. I think it is, as I say, in certain markets, it's really quite good. It's almost instant live data, no waiting 3 weeks after the show for stuff to come through. And as long as that's embedded into the design of the stand and everything functions from a space planning point of view, big or small, fantastic. At least it's locked in there. It's not some sort of optional benefit. It should be an expectation. It should be a demand of both organizers and people like ourselves. The other thing, though, is hospitality. I mean, it's the same between the comparison between the style and type and scale of hospitality in the UK with, say, Germany, which does things in a very, very different way, and France as well, and Italy. They have a slightly more hospitality bias in some sectors, where really the show is more of a meeting place rather than a lead generation tool. In many sectors, that is the case. Whereas I think, again, in the UK, perhaps we use things like engagement tools quite a lot, touch tables, lift and learn, interactives, different sorts of data mechanics to actually what we would term as persona marketing. So when somebody wanders up, we want to quickly determine well, are they qualified or are they disqualified? Because that's a skill. So we do lots of things with sales, exhibitor training, have some specialists who we work with who do that. That's very important, because the worst moments of my exhibiting life have been to see a fantastic stand with some people sat on it playing on the phone. Like, you've got that over there as well. This is nothing
Yeah,
unique from
yeah.
I'm hilariously launching into the conversation, but it is gutting because thankfully they're rarely mine in terms of my projects. But if they are, something happens about it, because you can't do that. You can't spend all that time, collateral and company brand asset to waste. So I think, yeah, hospitality, data comms, let's call it generally, and lead acquisition, let's say, but also the engagement factor. So we spend a lot of time on those activations, we would term them as.
Mhm.
So they can be very physical. You spin the wheels and all sorts of things that's been done many times are still very popular. We also do things with origami, just things that people are very tactile. People love to win, so give them a chance. So we love to have competitions and scavenger hunts and stuff like that. That's, it may not be unique, but it feels pretty unique when it works. And when you're on a stand as an exhibitor, which I've been many times, and you see people interacting and smiling and laughing and doing loads of socials, it does give you a very warm feeling inside. It really, really does, in terms of the fact that the design cycle has ended up with something that people are really enjoying. Because, let's face it, closing sentence of this bit, exhibiting should be fun. And if it's not fun, you've done it wrong. So it's not all about ROI. Sometimes it's about fun. So I think if we can blend the two using those sort of levers, then I think we've hit the nail pretty hard. Really, it should work. All other things being equal.
I love it. I love it. You're hitting a couple of big things that I always stress with my clients, and that is strategy. You got to have this thing all
Yeah,
planned
yeah,
out ahead of time. And then the other thing is you've got to train. You've got to train your people so that
yeah,
they understand, hey, we're here to have fun. This is the kind of mood we want at our booth. These are the questions we're going to have. This is the activation we're doing. Like you said, some of the old school things still work today. You've got that spinning prize wheel. People can hear that as they're approaching. They're, what does that sound? Oh, now they see the line of people waiting to win a prize. Now they're engaged by, wow, what's this line for? What am I going to get? And
yeah,
they want to find out. And then how do you use that line, and how do you get your people engaging with people while they're standing, so they don't just walk away, like, I'm not going to stand around.
yeah,
But now you got to
absolutely.
engage. There's all of that.
Yeah.
And I love that. There's
Like,
so many,
there's
great
also
things.
another spin on. There's also another spin on that. It's not just the mechanic of what you do with somebody. It's also the sales trainer that I know really well. His name's Stephen Murtaugh. He's the exhibition guy based
Oh,
in
yeah.
Ireland. Worked with him many times. Good friend of mine. He does something really well, which is, I suppose you could argue, never really thought of this before, it would work better with overseas customers from the States, where they could be disparate from many different states coming together for the show. Maybe it's a big HR company like, I don't know, Lattice or something like that, who've got many, many sort of operations. Sometimes the 22-year-old new starter who's doing really, really well, he's been invited to the show because he's keen and he's sort of edgy and he's excitable, doesn't quite have the same sort of elevator pitch, let's call it, as the 50-year-old guy who's been in the business many, many years, super valuable for other reasons. So sometimes just before a show, aligning all that on a Teams call or something like this with, say, 15 or 20 people, marketing, sales, projects, product, just to make sure everybody's got a really focused idea on what the return should be of that show, is probably the money best spent. Because then you get to the show, and just like you said, everybody's got a really, you can still go off road, you can still
Right.
ad lib, you can still, like I just did, but it's more a case of making sure that the primary levers of the company aren't forgotten in sort of random conversation. And I think that's so important. As you said, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to have a strategy. Sorry, but I think how you bring that to the show is very often down to making sure that there are no sort of stragglers who haven't been sort of party to the full messaging and the full pre-brief. So I think sometimes that, plus the same thing after the show, to make sure
Mhm.
post-show follow-ups are done credibly and quickly, basically. Those two parts. I love the idea of having a show and then you extend it into the pre and post. So
Yeah.
it's not a 2-day show, it's a 6-month program with a show in the middle. That sort of premise really works really, really well for me to help exhibitors to understand that we care about their market and their customer journey. We're not just into just building a stand and then that's your lot. That's one small part. The architecture is only part of what certainly we do. And I really like that, because if you can't take it personally, then I'm not sure you deserve the work. So I think that's part of our sales pitch now, is understanding that customer journey, that customer philosophy. And it goes back to that persona marketing thing again. Not
Yeah,
everybody will be a customer. So learning how to disqualify, I say again, is a real, real art. And some people find it very, very difficult because they think it's rude. Well,
right.
it'd be even more rude to waste 30 grand or, $50,000 on a stand space where you're talking to the wrong people. That would be
Right.
rude.
Yeah. The owners and the shareholders definitely think that would be rude.
I would think it was
Yeah.
rude.
It's even rude to spend 10 minutes on and take all of your time and energy pitching somebody who doesn't qualify.
Yeah.
It's your
Well,
waste
they
of
might.
time, it's their waste of time. And I love that you brought up Steven. He was on the podcast preview. He's still there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still there.
All of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah.
my computers went black. I'm like, what? Okay,
I'm
I
still here.
will. I'll edit that out. So, but I'm so glad you brought up Steven. He was a guest on my show previously.
Okay.
He's brilliant. He and I
Yes.
are very locked in with the way we approach our clients, and yeah, he's fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
Really,
I
really
didn't know that.
appreciate
That's
it.
great. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go. Small world, small world.
absolutely, absolutely. And with the thanks to virtual, it is even smaller. But yeah, you bring up so many great things. Having that meeting ahead of time to make sure we're all on the same page, that and like you said, you can add your own personality in, but making sure that you understand, here's what we're saying to people, here's how we're engaging, here's the questions we want to know. And if you're
Yeah,
going into a market, you're going to a new market like the UK, something you brought up earlier, find out about brand ambassadors, people that you can hire that are local, that know how to
absolutely.
speak the
Yeah,
terminology, and then but then they are going to immerse themselves into your company, your culture, your messaging, your branding, and probably do it even better than you can and your own people
absolutely.
from your company.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I love the thought of it. This is a 6-month process. We just happen to have a show in the middle of it
Yeah.
because there is so much you have to do ahead of time. And the show is not over when the you're packing up your exhibit and you're packing up your stand. It's over after all the follow-ups are completed. And now you're taking that learning. And what did we learn from this show? What are we gonna do better next time? There's so much of that happens after the show as well. That's
Uh, and,
outstanding.
and the main thing of that, the one thing to add to it, which is that when you have the next show in sight, say it's 6 months away, and your sales team is looking forward to it because the previous event was really successful and it just felt cool. But also when you can move that forward and actually you create advocacy between the shows. So your market starts to think, right, that was really cool experience. I love the fact that they had, whatever it was on the stand, that the engagement or whatever it was. Suddenly you build, you don't have such a, yeah, you flatten it really. So it's not these big sort of high points of the shows, then nothing in between. You
Yeah.
build up the ability to extend a marketing campaign to actually nurture those customers, new prospects actually between the shows. And again, not a brand new principle exactly, but often forgotten. It's often like the show's over. Let's look at the leads. Look at the leads. We only got 42 leads. Right, we won't go next year. And it's sort of like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. It's called return on investment for a reason. If you don't invest the thinking and blend that out into the post-show activity, then don't expect people to come running at the next show. They might, but hope isn't a plan, is it? So it's really interesting when you start to think of things as we now do with our clients, tend to be repeat clients, and on a line of travel which takes them up the exhibiting scale with more and more enhancements and engagements, because we can illustrate what worked and didn't work. Sometimes things don't go right and you think we won't do that again. What we'll do is we'll expand that area. We can do heat mapping on stands so we know exactly who's been wearing for how long. Those sorts of tech elements now are really, really exciting because they mean we can judge ourselves with our clients, and they can look and see, how the space planning of a stand, for example, or the hospitality planning, actually, as to our earlier point, could be changed for the better for the next time. So that's where it gets really, really interesting. That analytic, not too, educational. It's real. Then it's real. You could look at it and say, no wonder that worked, because the lead gen in that area was strong because of X, Y, and Z. So I think it's really, really interesting if you can try and find designers, contractors this side in the UK who got to that point, as we're lucky that we have, because they come with a certain amount of almost like free of charge knowledge. Then it's almost rolled into the
Mm.
project, that sort of innovative thinking, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah, and if the thought of heat mapping is making you say, "What? What's that? And you've got to learn all the new things that are available today. There's so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
technology. It wasn't even available, 1, 2 years ago that, and it continues to evolve and get better and better and better. And
yeah.
there,
There's still very few people doing it, I have to say. We
sure.
still see ourselves quite privileged in the UK. We're one of the few companies pushing it, but we did a show. We built a whole show last week called AI Summit at Tobacco Dock in London. The show fantastic. We basically were main contractor for the entire event rather than just a stand or stands. And as part of that, on some of the stands we did, we heat mapped the environment so that we could actually, during as well as post show, talk to that customer about exactly how long people were in certain areas, how long it was before they moved, where they moved to. It's almost like a website really, where you can look at where
Okay.
people drop the form or stuff like that. That's awesome. I mean, if I'd had that 20 years ago, yeah, I'd be even better. It's really good because you look at that, you look at the client's faces, you've not seen it before, and they've got all this sort of heat map data. It's like, oh my God. And when you're talking about people in the AI sector, that really, really floats their boat. So it's very, very interesting when you get to that level of sort of data analytics, because you can really prove both yourself and your contractor right or wrong, which is fantastic ability to be able to do that. There's less guesswork, basically.
Yeah, and the level and amount of data that is available to us today is
Mm.
just it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. The
Yeah,
more you dig into it, the more you realize there's more and more and more, and
yeah,
the opportunities
absolutely.
are
It doesn't
really
stop.
endless. And it just makes
Yeah,
you smarter. It makes you smarter at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
about continuous improvement. How do we use this? How do we get better? How do we serve our customers better? And you could start all that right there on the show floor, which is
Yeah.
really, really
Well, and
amazing.
that's the point. When that same technology is successfully scaled into a show rather than just a space, it means that we can look at, visitor flow, which entrances are hot. It brings in that sustainability piece, which is to do with, using energy well, where there's all sorts of little nuances that come from that one subject, which is always really, really great, especially the sustainability thing in terms of, carbon capture and the way we carbon map our carbon emissions basically through projects and stuff like that. That's got to come from somewhere, and sometimes that can be really, really useful. Just like for organisers, they want to know how far you've flown into the country for a show. We want to know, similar things about the suppliers that we chose for that
Mm.
event, or what the supply chain economy, if you like, carbon economy is. So that's where it becomes really, really interesting, especially for the younger population within the industry of sort of 20 to 30-year-old designers, project managers. They need to see that they work in an industry that's got that sort of foresight and it isn't wasteful. And that's a really, really strong tie between technology and sustainability, in my opinion.
So many great topics that we've covered on in rapid fire here.
It is rapid fire, yeah.
The-
Never spoken so much.
This has just been amazing, an amazing talk on sustainability, on technology, on data, and obviously on the differences in the UK. Andy, thank you so much for sharing so
You're
much.
more than
Uh,
welcome.
if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can drop me a line on my work email, which is andy@teamtechna.com. That's team@tecna.com. Or another easy way is just find me on LinkedIn, Andy Hickinbotham. Got an orange filtered image. You'll see me stand out nicely in a list. I'm often on there posting and commenting and doing some thought leadership stuff, as well as sort of just generally talking to industry. So I'm also an ESSA board member. ESSA is the trade association for the UK exhibition industry. I'm currently a board member. So I could be reached through that, but it's easier to go the LinkedIn route, or direct to Tecna. But always up for a conversation. Always had lots of US clients, and it is good fun when we do it right. So I'm always up for a conversation about those differences as well as those sames.
I will make sure we drop all your contact info into the show notes, so please check those out and check out what Tecna is doing. They do amazing things. Go to their website, just kind of hunt around a little bit and
Yeah,
see what they do, and reach out to Andy if you have any questions about anything we've covered today. Just really, really excited. Andy, thanks again for coming
no
on.
problem. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And everyone, keep coming back. Keep learning. Check out some more videos that we've got here, and we'll keep educating you. We'll see you next time here on campus. Trade show you.